Thank you, Michael. I've been told that we will be able to extend our question and answer period for a half hour. I mean, not by a half hour, but for a half hour, owing to our slightly late start. I've been afforded the privilege of asking the first question, or I guess I'm the moderator, so I've taken that privilege. After that question, we will turn it over to the microphones, and we'll probably take two at a time so that we can get as many questions up here, get as many people who want to ask questions to have the chance to do so. If I may then begin with the first question, yes. Mr. President. Thank you so much for coming here, and I deeply appreciate you framing your remarks in the notion of a frank exchange of ideas. I know Yale students, and I know frankness is one of their greatest attributes.
That's why I'm here.
Excellent, excellent. I have a question that I want to just preface with a couple different perspectives that I bring. As a genocide studies scholar, I'm acutely aware of the dangers of hate speech, the dangers of genocide denial, which is pernicious in its effects. As a student of African studies, in the African studies scholarly tradition, I'm aware of what you, I think, very nicely said, was the need to approach exchange with humility and mutual respect. A phrase that I thought about quite a bit in preparing my question, particularly when talking about matters of governance. But with that said, I also have a hat as a political scientist, and as a political scientist, I have I believe that there is a need for, a country functions best when there's room for debate, dissent, and opposition. That though uncomfortable in the short term, that is the foundation in which a country ultimately flourishes. And my concern is that in Rwanda, there are times at which that space for debate, dissent, and opposition constricts. Whether it is in sort of the low visible opposition in elections and referenda, the detention of journalists and opposition politicians, or just other areas of political discussion where it's difficult to see, at least from the outside, all sides. So my question for you, Mr. President, is there space for democracy and human rights to expand in Rwanda without sacrificing peace and stability? And if so, what is the way in which Rwanda as a country can expand that space?
Right. There is a lot of space, a lot to the extent that maybe some of it is taken actually by outsiders to come into the country and decide for Rwandans. I think that occupies a lot of space, which Rwandans should be occupying. I think that's where we are coming from, and that's what I raised in my speech. Second, that perception actually is mainly from outside rather than from inside. Again, which speaks to the point I raised earlier. Third, even as a political scientist, that is not a fact because you have said so. You see, that's the whole thing. If we look at the situation in my country, where we have been 22 years now, from a completely devastated country, no institution working, we had to create all these institutions. In fact, to tell you the whole irony that lies behind this kind of discussion, I remember in 95, that is 1 year after genocide, some people from outside came and started asking when we are going to have elections. And I would point to people, I said, elections by whom? For whom? Because we had close to 3 million people outside of the country and others displaced, internally displaced. But somebody comes in, elections. And we told them, we said, but we need to settle these people first. We need to bring back refugees, 3 million. We need to settle people. We need to create stability in the country in order for us to proceed with anything like that. And in fact, they are saying, no, if you don't show us the plan, if you don't do it, we are going to stop giving you money that you need. We said, no, but we need the money to do the very things that you're actually telling us to do. If we were able to do them without your money, then we don't need it. So there has been this back and forth discussion about how people perceive what is in the country, what is being done. Now, in Rwanda, if you, even as scientists or others, political scientists, would come and ask citizens of Rwanda how they feel, what they associate with, what they are doing about it, they will tell you a very clear and coherent story that is different from what is being said from the outside by political scientists or by others. So this difference of opinion and exactly was what I was explaining in my speech. So how do we live our lives, whether political or otherwise, or how do we bring states to form and stabilize and do what they are supposed to do? And so, and today we have a problem in Rwanda because things are working by and for the citizens of our country. And they tell the story. But somebody comes and says, no, but these citizens are not getting what they deserve or what they want. So how does somebody else get to know better what is good for Rwandans than Rwandans themselves? I mean, all Rwandans don't have to be political scientists to know what they want. As human beings know what they want wherever they are, even those who don't know how to write their names. They'll tell you what they want. They'll tell you, we want so-and-so to be our leader, we don't want so-and-so, we want things to work like this, we want security, we want food, we want health, we want education for our children. And that's what the system in Rwanda is providing to its people. Absolutely, irrespective of these other notions and phrases and all kinds of things. So we're talking about opposition. We have 9 political parties in Rwanda, 4 major ones. The others are small, but 4 major ones. They haven't been formed by government. They were formed from the environment that has been created. So the space here that is being talked about, and it has been talked about for a long time, really confuses some of us. And that's why I started by saying, actually, there is too much space to the point that it attracts people from other countries to come and occupy that space. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that answer. And in the as an act of humility, I won't try to defend my profession, but rather invite questions from the audience. There's a question here. I guess the microphones come to the questioner.
President Kagame, excuse my reading this, please. Why, given Rwanda's experience of state-sponsored genocide, have you not condemned the ethnic cleansing of non-Arab?
It seems there are echoes.
Sorry?
We are not hearing you clearly. I don't know.
No?
Can you bring the microphone closer, perhaps?
Okay. Why, given Rwanda's experience of state-sponsored genocide, have you not condemned the ethnic cleansing of non-Arab and non-Muslim Sudanese by the Khartoum regime? Secondly,
Okay, I'm sorry, can we, despite the bad example I set, I want to try to limit everyone to one question.
the second one is very important.
Okay.
Very important. Thank you.
Is it brief?
Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and even the United Nations have documented grave human rights abuses committed by Rwandan officials, including enforced disappearances and summary executions, arbitrary detention, suppression of free speech, and widespread intimidation of civil society members.
But
Why?
let me start with the last one. While I'm trying to, maybe somebody will tell me the first one, I kept not getting it clearly. But the last one, even if I didn't get it clear, I can guess what it is. I think the best answer would be given by the same people you said they have made the allegations, because that's an old story. Maybe we have gone back to the allegations that were being made 20, 15 years ago and have been answered. The truth has been known. So the same people you're quoting, I am not sure about Human Rights Watch, but I'm sure about the United Nations and others. They have come to know the reality and the truth about the question, the issues you have raised, to the extent that Rwanda has no such an issue as we speak. So it's an old story that keeps coming forward and ignoring the facts that have been.
The first question, if I can add, was about the whether you've condemned the violence against the Darfur population in Sudan. Is it Sudan or, yeah?
In fact, there we have done more than and better than what anybody else has done. In Darfur, we have the largest force there keeping the peace under the UN. We are the biggest contributor of peacekeepers who are operating in Darfur. So by being there and trying to secure peace there and protect people and under the UN, I think that is a statement in itself.
So
we are the largest contributor.
Oh. I'm sorry, I thought you were.
Yes.
Let's take another question. Yes, in the back. Yes. Yeah.
But maybe just peace being not being kept there is again an issue you can put to the UN, because we are working under the UN. Rwanda is not responsible for lack of peace in Darfur. We are there to try and contribute to bring about peace. But the fact that it is not there, Rwanda cannot be blamed. It is the UN that would answer that question. For us, we are there with the UN and under the UN contributing. We have our troops there. Some of them are killed or injured and trying to do the best they can under that. So I'm just saying Rwanda is doing its best there, but if what we have is not peace, it's not because of Rwanda.
Okay. Two questions one question per person, two people this time. We've already got one microphone there, and another microphone here, please. Go ahead.
President Kagame, you've made an impassioned plea for people not to believe the external perception of Rwanda that's portrayed in kind of op-eds and in reports of organizations that have been referenced. My question to you is, what would you say to citizens of your own country who share the criticisms that are seen in this report?
Well, I always have things to say to them. They are part of the problem, and they can be part of the solution. And the solution isn't just about complaining about things you are part of, but rather trying to address them. But the main point here is, you see, take any country of your choice, including this one where we are. We have people complaining about all kinds of things, don't we? You will have people complaining about certain things in Rwanda. But the totality of it is what you are able to see. And actually, people should learn to believe what they see. What we see in Rwanda is progress from almost nothing. 20 years ago, 22 years ago, for those of you, I'm sure there are people in this audience who know what happened in Rwanda and experienced it and saw it and have seen Rwanda now. The story is clear for you to see. It's up to you to believe it or not. But otherwise, for criticisms, we will live with criticisms, all of us. As I have told you, pick any country. I think there are more criticisms coming up for the countries that are not talked about than those we experience in Rwanda. So what can I tell? Criticisms, you listen, you discuss, but you ask people who are making criticisms to contribute. People cannot just contribute by making criticisms. You must also contribute by trying to deal with what the criticism is based on. This is what I would tell them.
Question here, and then my microphone was intercepted before, so straight ahead, yes. But you're next, yeah.
My question is on Singapore and Rwanda, as well as the trade-offs associated. I'm asking this question as a student from Singapore, and I would like to know, since you have said on accounts to our Prime Minister, Lee Hsien Loong, that Singapore is an inspiration to us in Rwanda, as well as Singapore, as Rwanda is the Singapore of Africa. We have similarities in terms of our pragmatic approach to governance, our scarce endowment of natural resources, as well as we share accusations of human rights violations from the government as well. So we see that there are merits and demerits to the kind of paternalistic model of government. But my question to you is, what is your opinion on these trade-offs, and why do you view Singapore as a model for Rwanda in terms of human rights, the political ideology, as well as international diplomacy? Thank you.
Should we take another question, or did you want to respond?
I think some of the questions are loaded.
They're similar, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So maybe we should take a
Okay,
few.
we'll take another one.
Yeah, let's take another one, and and then you're next.
Thank you, Professor. And Mr. President, my question is, you spoke in your remarks about how countries cannot just expect trust from the international community. They have to earn it through their actions and through repeated actions. In your third term, what specific initiatives do you have in mind to continue strengthening trust with the international community, especially in the wake of continuing reverberations after allegations in the Congo?
Did you get
So I believe the question was, in the next term, how will you create more trust within the international community? Was the crux of the question.
Yeah,
Well,
you said that countries have to specifically earn trust from the international community.
hearing?
So what is your plan in your third term to continue that process?
How can Rwanda earn the trust in the international community?
How can Rwanda earn trust?
In your remarks, you said that Rwanda, that all countries need to earn trust in the
Sure.
international community.
Right.
What can Rwanda do
To earn trust.
in the international community. I think she mentioned specifically the Congo as a place, a contentious area where perhaps other countries are skeptical of Rwanda, and is there trust that can be earned there?
Okay, I'll come to that. That's very interesting.
And then another question, right?
Why don't we take two now?
Take those two.
Let's take two first, yeah.
Okay.
Because, otherwise I'd miss interesting
Yeah, go ahead.
points. Let me take,
Your hand up there, yeah.
let's deal with the two. We have two.
Take
The
those
one
two.
of Singapore and then...
Okay, Singapore
yeah,
and trust,
yeah, yeah.
and then we'll get the next two already.
So for the Singapore one, first, there will always be different contexts about countries will not be the same and may not approach things the same way. Much as, for example, there would be similarities or admiration of what has happened in one place. And one has to look at where a country or people are coming from and where they are and how they've got there. So, for example, looking at Singapore, how they've indeed managed to develop to the point where they are without resources, but the major resource they had is what they invested in, and that's the people, the technology, and different things. So they ended up creating a lot of value from almost what was a low value-based situation. In Rwanda, it's about the same. It's a small country, not known to have a lot of natural resources and so on, but we have people. And that's why we have concentrated in terms of investments so that we make our people based on knowledge, skills, and then we can do other things that will raise the value for our country and development and continued growth. And in my view, I don't think I would speak much about trade-offs. It's just the context of the situation you have to deal with that determines the approach or the approaches that have to be undertaken in order for things to happen. So development, economic growth, socio-economic transformation, democracy, other values that have to be pursued go hand in hand. In fact, you will not find a situation where you just have one and you can't have the other, or you don't have the other. But you will have them maybe, or appreciating them to be at different levels. But there is always, things are going to change as time goes on. And each country will have to manage its own situation depending on the factors and the facts that underlie that. So I don't believe in trade-offs. I think we have to deal with the situation as it is. And then you keep trying to improve on everything as much as you can. But you are not, it's like you are not going to find any situation where there are no problems, as I said. I don't want to speak too much, making references to what we see happening today in the rest of the world. I think some of the theories are being exposed and disproved to have been just hot air. They just keep... So, but we can go by that. Then on the second question, first of all, Congo, Rwanda, then you see, we have a situation currently. In fact, in the past, Rwanda was being blamed for all kinds of things, internal, external, and so on. And of course, people deciding to conveniently forget what is at the center of it. How did Rwanda go to Congo? How did it get associated with Congo? It's one fact of genocide, which I'm sure you say you have studied. when I was talking about 3 million plus people who we have over 2 million in Congo, who went with the government, the former government that committed genocide, with the treasury, they picked, the central bank, the treasury, everything was shifted and taken to Congo. But it was not just that. When it happened, and people tend to leave out what they want because they have responsibility. This genocide that took place in Rwanda, those who have responsibility in it, who were associated with the government of Rwanda that carried out genocide, are the ones at the same time turning around and blaming Rwanda for being in the Congo and leaving out the story of genocide and those who committed genocide who went to Congo deliberately. So the story is forgotten to be related to genocide. It's a story about some crazy people in Rwanda who just crossed into Congo and caused the problems in the Congo. No. So if you will, the international community could have blamed Rwanda for Congo, what happened in Congo. But I think Rwanda has more reasons, justified reasons, to blame the international community for what happened in Rwanda and later extended to Congo. So, and I don't think we are going to make it a trade of accusations back and forth. We have to, that's why I said for me, it's important that in Rwanda we do what we are supposed to be doing for our people, and we've been doing that. There is evidence to prove it. But what is interesting today is how the same international community that was babysitting Congo and blaming everybody else for the problems of Congo today, as we speak, they are turning their guns on Congo and blaming the Congolese for their problems. So really, at least as today, they must have seen that this had nothing to do with Rwanda. It had to do with the Congolese themselves. They have to own up their problems. They will find their own solutions. That's what I think. But they can be assisted to find solutions for their problems and stop using Rwanda as an excuse. So now, for trust to be earned by ourselves as far as the international community is concerned, again, come to Rwanda. Study where we have come from. Look at where we are. Ask the citizens of Rwanda what they have been doing that has transformed their lives. It is visible. So are we going to say the international community has no eyes to see and believe what they are seeing? The international community has been a part of that progress, by the way. They've given us support, aid. There have been private investments coming in. And Rwanda, if you read whatever report, the World Bank, the IMF, the World Economic Forum, name it, any international, credible international institution organization ranks Rwanda in many aspects as top performers. It doesn't come by accident. So if the international community sees things happening in Rwanda, that every dollar from aid that comes to Rwanda produces what it is supposed to produce. It doesn't get lost in corruption, it builds schools, it goes into health, in agriculture, it is food security, and so then the international community, if it has a correct mind and judgment, he'll have trust for the country. There's no doubt.
I think there's time for, unfortunately, just one more question. I received and there's one microphone already distributed, so please.
Good. Two microphones. Hi, good afternoon, Mr.
That's confusing.
Maybe both of them
They're
quickly.
both. Okay, we'll take two questions, but they have to be quick.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Mr. President. My question is a bit different from the ones that have come before.
Quick, though, quick.
And it regards capacity development in Africa. Specifically, in building institutions. When the first speaker came to speak in earlier when he was introducing you, he said that Yale has a lot of collaborations currently going on in Rwanda.
That's what?
Collaborations going on in Rwanda.
Okay.
So, and there's a lot of this in different countries in Africa. My question is, what can Africa, maybe through the African Development Bank or national budgets, do to actually build the capacity to address our problems so that we don't have to rely on bringing specimens from Africa to Yale? It's a very expensive process, and if you only bought the equipment to do it in Africa, you can do it better.
It's a great question. Let me just take the one behind you as well. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. I hope you can hear me better. Thank you so much first for coming here and giving your time to the student, and we're learning from Rwanda. As every other country, there's a problem, and we need to face more constructively and try to find solutions in Rwanda. But there's so many success also in Rwanda. The first country in the world, 60% are in parliament are women. So I'm from Somalia. I'm asking why Rwanda is silenced, the issue in Somalia, and we can learn from you so many things because we went through war as Rwanda. Is there a way, or you're planning to support Somalia to reconstruct and rebuild back? Thank you.
Well, on the capacity building, I think each country has, and I think, by the way, capacity is being built. There's also progress. Across Africa, you see, whether the East African region or Southern Africa or West, there are many young people, doing all kinds of things that to build the capacities for themselves, but also mainly for their own countries. I think maybe it's a question of pace at which we are moving and connecting with that capacity being built to the needs of what has to be tackled in terms of our development. I think there is a lot of progress being made. And building capacity should not be confined to one place or one thing as such. I think building capacity can be built in countries or wherever that can be provided. I'm sure here at Yale, if that's where you are studying, you are actually very lucky. This is a wonderful institution that has, capacity to, build you to the person you want to be, or pass it to as many people as possible. And I think collaboration is going to be key, but there are countries will address their capacity problems, they address it in-house or across the world, wherever that possibility is. I don't see boundaries being created in building capacity, and I think it is already happening in Africa. I think we just need to move faster because the population is also growing. Where we are coming from, it requires a lot of people, scientists, engineers, all kinds of people to do the job. So there is that gap, but I think it is being filled as fast as can be. For Somalia, Africa has been helping Somalia. That's why there are peacekeepers in Somalia trying to fight Al-Shabaab and bring back security to the country so that Somalians can be able to also live in peace and rebuild their country. But it's not enough. There is still more to do. There is always more that can be done. And in fact, Rwanda, much as we don't have troops there ourselves, and one reason was that we had sent peacekeepers to Darfur, we sent them to Central African Republic, we have a total of about 8,000 troops. Also, another big part of policemen and women serving in peacekeeping across the world. So we were already constrained. We had such a big force already committed in different parts. We had no capacity to send troops to Somalia, but we participated in training policemen, revenue collectors, and different areas which the government of Somalia asked us to support them in, and we did that, and we did it within our limited means, our own budget, Rwanda's budget. We didn't charge them anything. So we are trying to contribute, all of us, but it is still not enough. I'm sure Somalians will do a lot more for themselves, and they can build on the little we can support them with, but I think we are trying, but it will remain not enough. And it's not because we don't want to contribute enough.
Mr. President, thank you so much for coming to Yale and for being open to all of our questions. I think you've given us a great deal that will continue in conversations in the coming weeks and months at Yale, and hopefully continued collaborations between Yale and Rwanda in the years ahead. Please join me in thanking President Kagame.
Thank you.